When you think of New York, you probably picture Times Square's bright lights, towering skyscrapers, and the non-stop energy of a city that never sleeps. But beneath all of that, there's a darker, quieter side of New York. Ghost towns. From sunken villages and abandoned Catskills resorts, to quarantine islands left behind by their last patient, these places aren't just quiet, they're the remains of civilization swallowed by time. Let's explore 15 of the eeriest and most fascinating ghost towns in New York. This neighborhood was once designed to be a model of modern American life. Neatly built homes, playgrounds, and an elementary school. But no one knew it was sitting on a ticking time bomb. Thousands of tons of toxic chemical waste, buried by the Hooker Chemical Company since the 1940s. This is the Love Canal, located in Niagara Falls. In the late 1970s, a strange smell started rising from the ground. After it rained, puddles filled with oddly colored water. Soon, reports of miscarriages, birth defects, and cancer began to spike. The scandal didn't just force thousands to evacuate, it shocked the entire nation. From this disaster, the Superfund Law of 1980 was born.
We fought very hard to stop the resettlement of Love Canal. We lost that battle.
While Love Canal is tied to a modern tragedy, Shaker Village in Mount Lebanon tells a very different story. The Shakers, formerly known as the United Society of Believers in Christ's Second Appearing, built this village in the late 1700s. They were known for their simple living, neatly built wooden architecture, and one rule that many found unusual: absolute celibacy. That's right, no marriage, no children. The only way their community could survive was by recruiting new members from the outside. At its peak, Mount Lebanon had over 600 members. It became the central Shaker settlement in America, with large barns, sprawling gardens, and an herbal and furniture production system still admired today. But over time, membership declined. By the 20th century, the village grew quiet and was eventually abandoned. Tivoli Bays has a different kind of fate. Located on the edge of the Hudson River, this small village was once home to fishermen, farmers, and workers who relied on the water. There were docks, boats, and small trade routes. But nature slowly took over. The Hudson River flooded more often, marshlands expanded, and the area became harder to live in. Trade routes shifted elsewhere, and Tivoli Bays was left behind. Today, it's no longer a village, but a 1,722-acre nature preserve managed by New York State. It's now a haven for migratory birds, deer, and wildlife watchers. If Tivoli Bays disappeared because of marshland, Gilboa has a far more dramatic story. It was intentionally flooded for a reservoir. This village once sat in Schoharie Valley, home to farmers and workers since the early 1800s. But in the 1920s, New York City needed clean water for its millions of residents. The solution? Build the Schoharie Reservoir, one of the city's major water system projects. As a result, the entire town of Gilboa had to go. Houses were demolished or moved, residents were relocated, and by 1926, the valley was submerged. What makes Gilboa even more famous isn't just the fact that it became a lost town. It's what was found there: fossils of ancient trees, some over 100 feet tall. These fossils are more than 380 million years old, making the area home to one of the oldest known forests in the world. Next up is Tahawus, a mining town founded in the early 1800s. During its peak, the village thrived on the back of the iron industry, but there was one big problem. The iron ore from Tahawus was mixed with titanium, which at the time was considered a nuisance. Back then, titanium had no market, so the product was nearly worthless. Gradually, the village lost its residents until it became completely abandoned. What's interesting is that Tahawus reappeared in American history in 1901. President Theodore Roosevelt was visiting the area when he received word that President William McKinley had been shot. Roosevelt immediately descended the mountain to Buffalo, where he would soon be sworn in as President of the United States. Today, the ruins of worker housing, mining warehouses, and rail lines remain, slowly reclaimed by the forest. Unlike the previous towns, Camp Santanoni was born out of luxury. Built in the late 1800s by Robert C. Proyne, a wealthy banker from Albany, this estate became the grandest great camp in the Adirondacks. It spanned over 12,900 acres and featured 40 buildings, including a Grand Lodge with 200 windows overlooking the lake, horse stables, a working farm, and a guest house built in Japanese style. Its purpose was simple: a private retreat for elite families, hosting politicians, businessmen, and high society guests. At its peak, Camp Santanoni was the symbol of upper-class wilderness living. But over time, the cost of upkeep became too much. The Proyne family abandoned the property by the mid-20th century. The buildings began to decay, the forest crept in, and Camp Santanoni became a silent, forgotten luxury compound. When you think of ghost towns, most people imagine old mining camps or submerged villages. But Frontier Town is something entirely different. It was once a Wild West-themed amusement park that opened in 1952 in the Adirondacks. For kids growing up in New York during the 60s through the 80s, visiting Frontier Town felt like stepping into a cowboy movie. But the golden years didn't last forever. By the 1990s, visitor numbers dropped, operating costs skyrocketed, and eventually, Frontier Town officially closed in 1998. Since then, the wooden Western-style buildings have been left to rot. Interestingly, the remnants of the theme park are still there. Some adventurous travelers sneak inside and discover old chairs, broken cowboy mannequins, and empty show arenas, a kind of ghost amusement park lost in the woods. Tucked in the heart of the Catskill Mountains, Phoenicia has a slightly different story. Unlike other ghost towns that are completely abandoned, Phoenicia is more of a semi-ghost town. Back in the 19th century, this village was a key stop along the Ulster and Delaware Railroad, bustling with life. But over time, the train stopped running, and the local timber and bluestone industries faded. As the economy declined, many residents moved away. Yet, Phoenicia never fully died. A small arts community, along with a few cafes and inns, still keeps it going. In fact, it has found new life in recent years, especially known for its tubing festivals on the Esopus Creek. Next is Ellenville, located at the foot of the Shawangunk Mountains. This town once thrived as a resort destination in Ulster County. From the 1950s to the 1970s, it was a popular escape for tourists looking for fresh mountain air, cozy inns, and spa hotels. But like many Catskills resort towns, Ellenville lost its spark when cheap flights to Florida and the Caribbean drew vacationers elsewhere. Today, its population hovers around 4,100, but the local economy continues to struggle. The garment and glass industries that once sustained the town have long since collapsed, leaving behind many empty buildings. Still, Ellenville isn't without charm. The nearby Shawangunk Cliffs remain a beloved destination for climbers and nature lovers, keeping a flicker of life in this fading mountain town. Parksville, located in Sullivan County, was once part of the famed Borscht Belt, a thriving Jewish resort region in the Catskills from the 1920s through the 1960s. Back then, this small town was alive with hotels, bungalow colonies, and family-run restaurants. But as cheap air travel and global tourism became more accessible, the Catskills resorts slowly emptied out, and Parksville faded with them. Today, Parksville looks more like a ghost town than a former holiday escape. Crumbling buildings, shattered windows, and collapsed roofs line its narrow streets. Yet, there's a glimmer of hope. In recent years, local entrepreneurs, artists, and food lovers have begun reviving the town, opening small restaurants and galleries inside restored old buildings. The past still lingers, but a quiet resurgence is taking root. These next two aren't towns in the traditional sense, but their ghostly presence earns them a place on this list. North Brother Island and South Brother Island lie in the East River, just off the Bronx. North Brother Island is infamous for the 1904 General Slocum disaster, when a passenger steamboat caught fire, killing over 1,000 people nearby, one of the worst maritime tragedies in U.S. history. After that, the island became a quarantine facility for contagious diseases. It even housed the notorious Typhoid Mary, one of the most infamous isolated patients in New York history. South Brother Island, smaller and even more isolated, has no buildings, just untouched wilderness, now a protected bird sanctuary. While North Brother Island is steeped in human tragedy, South Brother Island feels like a place-time forgot, quiet, wild, and rarely mentioned outside of historical circles. Next up is Woodstock, a town best known today for its artistic community and iconic name. But beyond the galleries and music festivals lies a more forgotten side of this mountain town. Since the 19th century, Woodstock has attracted artists, miners, and craftspeople, but much of its early community has long since vanished. If you hike through the surrounding forests, you'll still find stone foundations, ruined workers' cottages, and the remains of early artist colonies, silent relics of a past era. It's a striking contrast. The vibrant image of Woodstock today versus the quiet, crumbling structures hidden beneath the trees. Then there's Rondout, once a bustling port in Kingston, Ulster County, where the Delaware and Hudson Canal met the Hudson River. In the 19th century, Rondout thrived as a commercial hub, Coal from Pennsylvania passed through here, destined for New York City and beyond. The town was packed with workers, hotels, bars, and churches, a vibrant port city of its time. But when the canal shut down in the early 1900s, the economy collapsed almost overnight. It wasn't until the late 20th century that restoration efforts began. Today, parts of Rondout have been revived as a historic district, with museums and art galleries. But echoes of its golden age remain: cobblestone streets, empty warehouses, and an atmosphere that makes it feel like a ghost town that's been partially reawakened. Onoville is a haunting example of a town not slowly abandoned, but deliberately erased. Located in Cattaraugus County, western New York, Onoville was once home to small families, many of Seneca Nation descent, living quietly in the Allegheny Valley. Everything changed in the early 1960s when the U.S. government built the Kinzua Dam on the Allegheny River. The project aimed to control flooding, but came at a steep cost. Entire villages, including Onoville, were forcibly cleared out. Homes were dismantled or left behind. Fields were submerged, and Onoville disappeared beneath the Allegheny Reservoir. What makes the story even more tragic is the betrayal felt by many native residents whose ancestral lands were lost, despite long-standing treaties. Today, Onoville survives only in the memories and stories of those who once lived there. Last but not least, we have Doodletown, often called New York's most famous ghost town. Tucked inside Bear Mountain State Park in Rockland County, Doodletown was settled in the 1700s. For generations, small families lived simple lives, farming, working in nearby mines, sending kids to school in a wooden schoolhouse. The turning point came when the state decided to expand Bear Mountain Park. By 1965, the last remaining residents had moved out, and Doodletown was officially abandoned. Today, you can still walk its old roads, see the stone foundations, and even visit its historic cemeteries. Hikers often describe the place as quiet but eerie, a trail laced with whispers from the past.